something I'm really good at, failing. So basically what we'll do today is we're going to discuss this topic, but actually give you some like practical things of why this feels so hard, right? When failing, and think about failing too, not just in the sense of failing a lift, but also like not doing as well as you wanted to on a qualifier, not qualifying, like in your open workout, not doing as well as you wanted to on a leaderboard. Like what actually happens inside your body when that occurs, right? So I'm going to try to keep this pretty short because I want to have a good time for questions. But at any time, if you guys have any questions, just feel free to raise your hand. So again, what do we do when we fail? Let's face it, failing is inevitable. So this usually is what happens when we fail. This is what I see in myself, a lot of my athletes, is one, we feel a lot of shame, right? Like we're shameful about like, man, I didn't do as well as I wanted to, right? Or I didn't do as good as I wanted to compared to X in my gym, right? Or X on the leaderboard, or the X person that's in my division, which goes into comparison, right? Like how much are we comparing ourselves? And that's why it feels like a fail. Because most of us, if we do a workout by ourselves, like, oh, I did pretty good. But then you put 10 other people around you, all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's a fail, right? So that's another thing that we see. And then wanting to quit. So after you fail, that's usually like the first thing that we always want to do is we want to quit. We want to change what we're doing. We want to have a new idea of something that we feel like we need to do. And then the last one is the feelings of inadequacy, right? And you can kind of see these kind of all go in hand to hand. So one thing we're going to do, and this is going to be kind of like a quiz, but I'm going to discuss this in this conversation, and I kind of want you guys to figure out what this stands for. But I want you to remember this. DMDD, all right? And then as we kind of go, does anyone feel like they know what that is? Stands for? Good. No, it's not Wheel of Fortune. Yeah, by about. Yeah, did anybody get to see that, by the way? Good, don't watch it. It was actually a fail. So as we go through this, because this is really important, if one thing you could take from this talk is going to be that, right? To lock that into your brain.
Is it don't make dumb decisions?
Maybe, but no. That's good. All right, so the science behind why this happens. So this is one of my favorite equations right here, okay? So if failure equals threat, then brain equals survival mode, which means you equal all of those emojis, right? And what this means is that in our society, what do we view as failing? Like we think of that as a bad thing. But what if we could shift that? What if we could shift your mindset to think that, yeah, failing actually isn't a threat. Like it isn't something that I have to be afraid to do. Because again, if that is what has happened in the past for you, like anytime you've gone to a qualifier or competition, you've not done well, and you said, I don't ever want to feel that way again, then you're going to always be in your brain to say, I don't want that to ever happen, right? That's going to be your thought pattern, right? And then that's going to send you into a mode of like, hey, I got to get out of this, which is going to lead you to those examples that we went through in the beginning. You're going to feel shame. You're going to want to quit. You're going to want to compare yourselves. So if failure has been registered by the brain as something negative or dangerous, the body will interpret it as a threat, just like what we said. This shifts the athlete out of learning into survival, making clear thinking and problem solving more difficult. So this we're going to get into the window of tolerance. Anybody in here like neuroscience? One person? Two people? Anybody have heard the window of tolerance? So if you've done any neuroscience, this is like the ABCs of when you're learning neuroscience. Like this is the first thing that you learn. Because in most, especially on social media, everyone wants to talk about the nervous system and trauma. But here's the truth. Nobody really knows what it is unless you're actually studying it. Right? So the window of tolerance, all right, is actually our capacity to take on emotional adversity. A lot of people think regulation, we all want to be regulated, right? But we think of that as just a nice, calm state. That's just part of it. Real regulation actually means I have the ability to have the capacity to take on emotional adversity. So example I use a lot of times, let's say you're on vacation and I throw a pie in your face, okay? Well, I guarantee you, you're gonna feel a certain something in your body, right? Maybe you're gonna want to get up and like say, "What the heck? Why'd you just do that?" But let's say I throw that pie in your face on one of your most stressful days in your life. You just lost your job, you just had a bad workout, and now you feel all this comparison, and then someone throws your pie in your face. Do you think that reaction is going to be a little different? 100%, right? Because your window of tolerance is super small. You have no ability to take on any more emotional adversity. So if you find yourself snapping in a workout where you're like kicking the barbell or you're like cussing out of nowhere, and you're like, where did that come from? Or you just start breaking down crying out of nowhere, right? It's not that those are bad, but it's to get curious about like what is actually happening underneath the surface here. What are the other things that are happening either in the competition, in the workout, in the week leading up to that. So again, when we look at the window of tolerance, we want this to always be expanding, right? And we don't want this to be shrinking, okay? And another thing that we can do is if we have a chart here, the optimal zone that we want to be in, can't count, 3, 2, 1. There we go. Okay, the optimal zone that we want to be in is this, all right? So like I said, regulation keeps us in the PFC. What is the PFC? Anybody know? It's a part in your brain. Yes, the prefrontal cortex. Why do we want to be in that zone? It's because that's when we're thinking the clearest, okay? But this is what people don't realize, is that you can actually be, if you think about that, the third one, regulation not always equals parasympathetic. So we think when we're regulated, like we're just like super calm, like I said. But when we're in this mode of on, right? Like think about your nervousness before a competition. Like that's good for your body. But if you're staying in that constantly, that's what we call dysregulation. So there is a point when you're feeling emotion inside of your body, you can still be in your prefrontal cortex. It's not like it shuts off. Does that make sense? When your prefrontal cortex shuts off is when you stay in it too long. So part of, again, ruminating on a loss, which we'll get here in a bit, is that's what can keep you in that. So again, our goal is that we want to stay in this. Okay, we don't want to go up here too high. Because again, from the last talk that we gave at camp, this is considered hyperarousal, right? And down here, this is considered hypo. So again, our goal is that we want to stay in this zone. You probably have heard of like the flow state. That's what that means. That's when our window of tolerance is expanded. So if anything happens to me, like emotional adversity, let's say the judge is no-repping me. Are you going to be the person that like starts talking back to them? Or are you going to lock in and say, there's probably only 2 things that I'm getting no-repped on. I'm going to make sure I change it. It's why Michael Phelps, if you want to look at an athlete that knows how to stay regulated under pressure, is look at Michael Phelps. He visualized over and over again the worst things happening. So in the 2008 Olympics, he visualized it probably 1,000 times, his goggles falling off and filling up with water. And guess what happened in 2008 Olympics? That happened. Guess what didn't happen? He didn't get dysregulated, right? Because he already knew that was going to happen. So he could stay in his optimal zone throughout that whole race. And he actually finished the last length of that race blind, just by counting strokes. So it's really important, you guys, to stay into this. Because if we don't, this is what's going to keep us making really emotional decisions. Any questions on that? Cool. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so this is, again, something for y'all to get curious about. So let's use an example, because this is going to happen in a couple weeks, right? You're going to finish the first open workout, and let's say it doesn't go the way you want it to, right? And put whatever you want that to be. So it could be quarterfinals, it could be semifinals. That event does not go the way you want it. Can you first get curious as to why? Right? We've been talking a lot about like realistic expectations. Like, did you have realistic expectations going into this? Right? You started CrossFit 3 months ago, but you wanted to make the games. It's not realistic, right? But if no one's telling you that, or you're not figuring out, is this realistic or not, no matter what, it's going to be a loss for you. It's going to be a fail, right? Was there a clear strategy? This is something we don't even think about. Like you go into open workout and you're mad that Joe Schmo beat you, that does class workouts every single day, but you're paying $500 a month for NPC. Why did Joe Schmo beat me? Well, Joe Schmo, one, doesn't care as much as you do, and he knows how to pace and strategize, and you just went into it blind. All right, so this is really important. Like these are things that can keep you from actually getting into that position of like hyperarousal or hypo. Was the warm-up effective, right? Was fueling adequate? Was sleep sufficient? Like these, again, are questions that you can ask yourself. Something I always tell my athletes is anytime they come to me and they're not feeling the best, I say, can you just become a detective first? Like you're coming here and you're really overwhelmed, I get it. But can we also look back at the last 2 weeks of what you've been letting me in on? You said you're really overwhelmed, you're really stressed out, work is really stressful now. Do you not think that's going to play into what you're feeling right now? Right? So again, but the goal is, can you get curious of what is happening? Because that's just one part. We also need to talk about your nutrition, your sleep, your relationships. Like if that has been whacked that whole week, we can't think that I'm going to go into the open workout thinking I'm in the best ability I've ever been in. Does that make sense? So again, these are just some questions, but there's a lot more that you can start to ask yourself to get curious about, hey, how did this actually go for me? What are the things that I can actually learn from this? Because the last thing that we want to do is make a really emotional decision that's going to lead us more into what we perceive as safety, but it's actually not safety. So to give you an example of this, because this happens probably every year, someone will end up doing the open. They won't do as good as they want to, right? So let's say they finished 10,000 spots less than they did the year before. They're going to say, you know what, I don't want to do CrossFit anymore. I want to do high rocks. But why, though? Because you're not okay with how you did on a leaderboard. But then they're also not asking themselves any of those questions. But this is why it's so important. I think Dom said it earlier in his conversation today is don't make the decision to retest a workout even in the next 30 minutes after you're done. Like the goal is, can you get to a regulated state first and then make a decision? But here's the sad truth, is most of us will stay in that dysregulated state for a long time. It could be weeks after the open workout's done, right? So you're making all these decisions and saying, no, I'm regulated because I'm calm. But remember what we know about dysregulation. In this state, hypo, everyone thinks that is regulated. It's not, right? So after, like right now, you guys are calm. You just finished a tough workout. But most of y'all still are at a really low level of dysregulation because some of y'all probably didn't cool down well enough. As soon as you finish the workout, you just ran around and that's pretty much what you did. And again, there can be really low levels of dysregulation, right? It's what we call allostasis. And we stay in that. Because some of you right now, if I'm looking around, like your feet are tapping, your hands could be sweaty. Like those are sure tells that your body is not in a rested state, right? And that's okay, but it's good for you to start to notice that, because if you're making decisions based out of that all the time, you're just going to be making emotional decisions. Happens all the time, right? My job's not going good. I want to quit my job. But you said that again for the last 6 jobs, right? So can you just get curious about like what else is there underneath all of this? Make sense? Any questions on that? All right, training after a loss. You get a drink, my mouth is so dry. So after a loss, this is really important. What should you do, right? So the first thing we talked about was resetting the nervous system. So again, I think a lot of us know practical ways of what that is. We can breathe, right? We can find, something that can bring us down or bring us up. But like really, how do we even know when we're regulated? How do we know that? Feel? Anybody else want to add anything to that? Like how do we actually know like we're regulated and our nervous system is reset? Say it again. Not crying anymore?
Heart rate.
Heart rate? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. HRV is one of the best things to track for your nervous system. But practically, right, it goes back to what I said, right? Do you have the emotional capacity, right? Because if you're in this space and you're like, yeah, I'm regulated, but then we ask you to go and do something like, I don't have energy to do that. And well, here's the truth, like you're not as regulated as you think. You might be kind of regulated, but again, the goal of regulation, if we want to embody regulation, you know what regulation is? It's Jesus. Because he actually was the most regulated human being in the world. Because it was confusing to the disciples how regulated he was when he was on the boat sleeping when everybody else was freaking out, right? Or when he was like crying before Lazarus, he raises him back up. It's like, why are those things happening? It's because he's so in touch with him and himself that his body's allowed to move through those emotions well. Because that's what people don't realize is if I'm crying or if I'm angry, if I'm showing that, if I can come back down quickly, I can stay in my optimal zone. So showing emotion is not a sign of dysregulation, but is the emotion ongoing? Is it continuous? Or are you able to go up and come back down? Right? And that's, again, where we learn that is in co-regulation, right? We're supposed to have somebody to teach us, like, hey, you're feeling a lot, let's bring you back down. Are you really sad? Does somebody have the ability to help you bring back up? If you don't have that growing up, it's going to be really hard for you to even find that. Because some of y'all, working out has been that for you. Right? Working out is a way that you feel regulated, but what happens when the workout doesn't go well? Then what? Right? And then now you get into self-sabotage. You're doing things that you don't want to do. So again, it's really good for you to start to get curious about that. Right? So that kind of goes with resetting the nervous system. Creating wins and enjoyment in training. You just experienced a loss, right? So like, what would it look like for you to get a win? What would it look like to let your coach in on, hey, I just don't feel like I did well at all. right? That's also why it's important on that day after the open, we talk about doing like antagonist movements. Well, let's give you a win. Like, let's give you something that you enjoy doing, right? So you get your headspace out of like this negativity of like everything that I'm doing, I just suck at, right? So if we give you something fun to do, say, hey, we're going to reset real quick, and then on Monday we're going to kind of do this again, right? So that's just something that's really important. And you can even think of this as like after your season. Let's say your season comes to a screeching halt. What should your off season look like in the beginning? If you've just come off a loss, go have fun. Like go rock climbing. Go do something that has nothing to do with performance to you. That's just going to bring you enjoyment, right? Because if we just stay in the suck, like, okay, back to CrossFit again, you're just going to be in that mentality of like, it's just me versus the world. I got to be better because I don't want to experience this again, which just puts all this pressure on you that you're going to end up feeling that again if you don't start to again look at losing as not a threat for your body. If you can start to frame, hey, this is going to happen no matter what. Some shape or form, can I just be ready for it? And when it happens, can I make sure that I'm starting to do these things? First thing that you want to do, reset your nervous system. Can I do something to get enjoyment, right? Like that's another thing when we look at regulation. Like if I'm working out and the judge is yelling no rep at me and I'm screaming, yelling, cussing back at him, like that just shows that I have zero capacity, right? But what happens if I like trip on my double unders and I just keep tripping? I just start laughing, right? Because I'm just like, yeah, it's okay, right? Because I'd rather have that mentality than me throw my rope down and leave and throw a hissy fit like Danielle Brandon did like a couple years ago, right? But why? Because there's so much pressure on the sport. I have to be good. Why? I will ask that question to my athletes all the time. Like, what is this sport giving you that you're not getting outside? Because you're putting so much pressure on it. And that's what's making you snap in these situations. And then allowing time for rest and recovery, right? The best way to regulate your nervous system is to just get rest. We look at boredom in our society as a negative thing. Boredom is actually what we're made for. Like, we're made for boredom. But boredom feels threatening to us because we're like, oh, I have to accomplish something. I have to go and do something. And most of us cannot sit still without being on our phones or listening to music or like watching TV. Like, that's not rest. It's not rest. And then most of y'all, as soon as you slow down, put all distractions away, what happens? Fall asleep. That's a sure sign that you're so dysregulated all the time that the minute that you slow down, I just want to like maybe break the ice here. If you fall asleep immediately as soon as you lay down, that's not healthy, right? Like, and again, we think that is, oh, I just work so hard all day and that's why I'm tired and I fall asleep. Guys, it's like that is not what our bodies are made for. Like, we should have the capacity to say, I'm going to put everything away and I can just find rest, right? But most of us don't know what that ever feels like because we've never got to experience it. So it's just something to get curious about. It's like, hey, every time you slow down, what happens? Do you fall asleep? Does your mind start racing? Do you start to get up and clean the house rapidly? Right? I keep seeing these videos around of these women cleaning the house like this, and they say, this is how I've healed, is just by slowing down. Like, we're always in a rush to do something. Like, we're rushing around the house for what reason? So again, it's just asking yourself and getting curious about that. It's like, what is putting you into this pressure situation of like, it has to get done this way? Well, what if it doesn't? Right? Like, a lot of people ask me, like, why do you put your phone on Do Not Disturb all the time? Like, what if somebody needs you? But can I trust that I'm going to be okay no matter what? Because if I believe in like a God that's really sovereign over my life and I'm being obedient to the work that I'm doing, I don't have to worry about anything else. And you're like, but something could happen bad. It's like, but I have to trust that I'm going to be okay. Right? And that's what we don't feel like. We have to take control of everything. I have to control everyone. I have to show up for everyone. You don't. You really don't. Like, God is telling you that He's already shown up for you, and that's what you get to step into this world to do freely. Right? It doesn't mean you just got to like chill back and relax, but that's going to give you the capacity, the emotional capacity for you to go and do the things that God's calling you to do. And to not worry about how is that going to affect others around you.
Why is sleep not rest?
Great question. It's not that sleep isn't rest, because sleep is rest. It's the fact of if sleep is the only point of rest that we're getting. Right? So let's say you're going through your whole day and then you're just busy going from one thing to the next, and then immediately you're sleeping and then waking up again and doing that all over again. That's burnout. Right? That's not rest. Right? You can find rest in sleeping for sure, but if that's your only sense of rest, it's going to be really hard for you to ever feel rested. Does that make sense? Yeah, great question. Yeah, any questions on that at all? Yeah. Yeah, remember past successes to regain perspective. I think that's also really important. We like to sabotage ourselves of like, man, I'm just not a good enough athlete. But it's like, man, 6 months ago, you're a PR in every single lift, right? And you're in the highest point of your life. You're like, this is it. I love it. I love everything that I'm doing. I love CrossFit. But then one loss defines everything for you, right? So there's just so much identity in this, guys, right? Because again, at the very end, it's like we're talking about working out here at the end of the day. We're talking about working out, right? And it doesn't mean you can't get upset about losing and you can't want to have this desire to win. But is that desire to avoid losing and the desire to win bigger than your identity? It can't be. But it is for a lot of y'all subconsciously. Because all of us in here would say, yeah, I know it's just working out. I'm doing this for fun. But then again, why are you putting your pressure on yourself for everything to be perfect? Because that's what's going to burn you out. That's what's going to keep you outside of this window. So let's see what we got next. All right, so key things to remember, right? So can we start to, again, tell ourselves in our brains that a loss doesn't have to be a threat, right? Can we start to tell ourselves that? Like, a loss does not have to be a threat. Like, we have this, again, mentality in society that, like, you know, doing hard work is hard. But what if we just change our mentality of like, no, this is actually what we're made to do, right? Like me and Jorge, like sharing his story, of course that's hard, but what if that just became the ordinary? Like that, because again, that's what we're made to do, right? But in society, it's like, no, we can't be vulnerable. We can't do this because what's going to happen? People are going to start talking about us. So we start to register those things as losses. If I don't do as well as I want to on the leaderboard, if I don't lift as heavy as my friend, I'm a failure, which isn't true, right? But we tell ourselves that. So the mundane and boredom equals healthy, all right? So a lot of people, especially in their programming, like they just want everything to feel so sexy all the time, right? And what do we know about sexy programming? It's not linear, right? And you're not going to see a lot of results in that. And this is, again, a fault that I see in the CrossFit community is that a lot of CrossFitters are not playing other sports. Because I grew up playing basketball and I played college basketball, and you know how many times I just had to be in the gym for 3 hours just doing this? Every day. And then 3 hours just doing this from one spot. I mean, that is mundane. But that helped me play college basketball, right? And CrossFitters are like, no, I suck at double unders. Okay, well, are you going to be upset that we do double unders 3 times a week? I don't want to do it. It sucks. All right, well, you're not going to get better at double unders. Right? So again, it doesn't mean everything in your life has to be mundane, but we run from that. Like we're like, I don't want to be in the mundane. I don't want to be in the boredom. That's what I want to avoid. I want everything to be really enticing and really fun and really sexy. And again, that's also you chasing something. Because as soon as everything slows down, you're like, I want to avoid that at all costs. Does that make sense? So it's really good for you to start to see like what in your life can start to become more mundane. Spending time with God consistently, right? Can that become a mundane thing for you to do and for you to find joy in that, right? For you to actually find joy in the mundane, because that is where, again, a lot of the rest we'll feel in that in our lives. Don't make decisions dysregulated. That's what that stands for, okay? Don't make decisions dysregulated. If you're in an emotional state, you're not in your prefrontal cortex. So any decision that you make dysregulated is going to be an attempt for your body to find safety. That is the truth. Anytime you're dysregulated is going to be your body's attempt to find safety. Right? So think about that. If you're not doing well and you're losing and you're like, I want to quit this, I want to get a different coach, I want to change my sport, I want to do high rocks. Why? What would happen if you stay in what you're doing and just see it out? What would happen? Most of the time, you're going to get back to the place, oh yeah, I was just being emotional. Right? And again, all of what I'm speaking about, guys, is my story. How many times I've had to pick up and leave things because of how dysregulated I felt. I said, man, it would be a lot easier if I just change up what I'm doing right now. Right? You know what the crazy thing is? Most of us, when we're presently in that, it's the place where we wanted to be. But it's like 3 years ago, we would have loved to be here, but now all of a sudden we want to change that again. Why, right? It's because what this thing is giving us something that is really dear to us, that we're also not supposed to be fully getting from that, right? We're wrapping our identity in all of these things. It is so easy. Our first instinct as humans is going to be to make everything else outside of God idols. Everything. Your relationship to your parents, your relationship to your sport, the relationship to your job, the relationship to your spouse. All of it can become idols in your life because it's given you something that feels really good, that in the moment you're like, oh, this is the best feeling in the world. And some of that will go on for years and years and years. Like for me, basketball, I had like just an uphill climb. It was like I just kept getting better and better, and offers would come in. I just kept getting better and better until I got to college, and I'm just like, oh, this is not what I signed up for. I never signed up to feel like this. But again, it was my relationship to it, right? And all of this, again, if you can hear any of our coaches saying this, it's like you're only ever going to feel fully fulfilled and satisfied in God, right? But here's the sad truth. From someone that studies trauma and abuse, most of us have never felt good care. So we don't know what that feels like at all, right? And we can consciously say, I know I'm supposed to get that from God. I know He's there for me. He can fulfill everything inside of me, but my body doesn't trust it, right? And again, when I work with a lot of athletes that have like OCD, and they're like, man, I don't trust anybody anymore. I don't trust anybody. Yeah, that makes sense because the people in your life, there was no reason to trust them. So even though you know you can trust God, your first instinct, especially when you're dysregulated, is going to be, I need to operate in this way. So it's just a good reminder to say, hey, that's not what I'm made for. And that's what all of this is leading to, is like, what are you made for as a human race? It's like you're made to feel super connected and securely attached to a heavenly Father. But if we've never experienced that in our human body, it's going to be really hard for us to like believe that subconsciously. Does that make sense? So, part of counseling and therapy, like everyone will always say this, is like we're trying to make the subconscious our conscious, right? Because the more aware you can become, then the more aware you're going to be in your tendencies of when you go to these low moments. Like, man, how do I keep getting back to this? Why do I keep going to this when I fail? Yeah, because it's what you've always gone to. You've been doing it from the very beginning. So the more that you can start to trust, like, hey, I'm not made for that. I can go and compete and want to win and put all of the effort in that. But if it doesn't happen, I'm okay. I don't need to make a decision to change everything up. Like, are you going to be okay if you're a mundane athlete for the rest of your life? Maybe some of you wouldn't be. And that's just something to get curious as to why. Like, what even getting to the games or getting to whatever your goal is, what is that going to do for you? Right? Because last thing I'll share, I think this is the last slide. Yeah, last thing I share. There's two men in the Bible, Solomon and Job, right? And one of my favorite preachers talks about that these two men have had completely different lives. Solomon has had everything you can humanly imagine, like get, right? I even looked up what Solomon's net worth would be in today's world. Does anybody know what it would be?
Way over what anybody else is.
Yeah, in the trillions. No one on like.
It's like certain businesses can't even.
Yeah. And then Job's story, if you don't know anything about Job lost everything. Not only did he lose all of what he had, he lost his wife, he lost his children, and he even lost his health. And both of those men came to the same conclusion, that everything outside of this world is vanity. Everything. Right? And I'm telling you, we don't even know the wisdom that Solomon had. And he had everything, guys. And he's saying all of it is vanity. None of it matters. So again, the question to ask yourself is, what you're doing, why does it matter so much to you? And it's not to say, find my why. No, it's like, no, why does it matter to you so much? Why do you cry over and kick a barbell after you're done? It's not for you to feel shame about that. It's just to get really curious. Because if we're supposed to be in this, that shouldn't happen. Again, it shouldn't happen. Because you have the capacity to say, no, I'm good. It's okay. Right? And I get to see this firsthand because even in CrossFit and basketball, I go to go play in men's leagues now. My first shot of the day, air ball. Wide open layup, miss it. If I did that in college, I would be wrecked for weeks. Weeks. So embarrassed. So angry at myself. Why? Because I cared so much about what the sport gave me. Now I could care less. But you know what's so funny? There would be moments when I'm playing these men's leagues, I'll actually play better than I even have in college. Because I don't care. It's not that I don't care that I want to play hard. I'll go in there and play really hard. But I know at the end of the day that no matter how hard I play or not, it doesn't define my identity. And I think this is really important to say. I'm not up here saying that you can't be upset after a loss. Please be upset. But the invitation is, can you get curious why you're so upset? Right? Like, why is it lasting for months and weeks at a time? Right? Because, again, I think it's so important to get upset at something because that means you do care about it. Right? If me and my wife get into a conflict, I'm upset about that because I care about my wife a lot. But if I'm trying to then become somebody for my wife because I'm trying to avoid conflict all the time, because it's going to make me feel better, right? If we're not in conflict. So it's just, again, it's something to get curious about. Where are you putting too much effort into something that you weren't made to do? So, yeah. Any questions on any of that? Any thoughts?
You had brought up individuals not experiencing care, and that it's like a block to the relationship with God. What would you say to somebody who's like exactly what you talked about, who wants to get that relationship, who wants to regulate through relationship with God, but can't get there?
Like, what would you say for that person?
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, finding connection, right? And again, growing up in Bermuda, if you didn't know that, that's where I'm from, I have seen it firsthand that I don't want to say that there's lacking culture in America, but there isn't a sense of community as much as we want it to be, right? We live a lot in isolation here. It's like, I got to do this. I got to be the best person that we're supposed to be. And we see a lot and we see a lot in other countries. It's honestly the opposite, right? It's so community driven, and that's a lot of times where we're going to experience the kindness and love and compassion of God is in those settings. So that could be the first invitation is if you're lacking something, right, and you're wanting to receive it, it's like, yes, get involved. Like, go and get involved in a community group. Like, go and get yourself involved in somebody that can actually help you to even become aware of those things that you are lacking. So, yeah, does that kind of answer that for you? Yeah. Any other questions?
Oh, go ahead, sorry. Somebody said something?
No, I don't think so.
Did I just hear something?
You said something.
I'm just regulated.
Yeah.
I'm at a 9. No, give Connor a round of applause.